Hey, what's up? Welcome back to Ishkak's Picks. Today we're ranking the best and worst horror movies of 2024. From the ones that barely give you goosebumps to the absolute nightmare fuel that'll haunt you for weeks.
I mean, gosh, and I knew I was a handful as it was.
We hope you'll enjoy the following ranking. Please let us know your favorite in the comments and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a great movie again. At number 23, we have Dancing Village, The Curse Begins. A folk horror film that takes the classic creepy village trope and adds a cursed dance into the mix. The story follows a group of outsiders who stumble upon a secluded village where an eerie ritual dance is performed to keep an ancient evil at bay. But, of course, someone messes up and things go south real fast. Expect a slow burn setup, ominous folklore, and a lot of unsettling stares from villagers. Who definitely knows something you don't. So what is my take? I think this one leans more into atmosphere and mystery rather than outright terror. It's got that classic Japanese folk horror vibe, but it doesn't quite hit the scare factor you'd expect.
Your language is offensive.
The MDB and Rotten Tomatoes scores aren't out yet, but based on early reactions, it's more eerie than terrifying. And so is it worth a watch? If you enjoy folk horror with a slow creeping tension and a unique cultural backdrop, you might find it intriguing. But if you're looking for jump scares and nightmare fuel, or even slow scares, I mean this one won't do the trick, and you have to wait until number one.
Is offensive.
And so in terms of scare factor, I think it's unsettling but not terrifying, more of a creepy bedtime story than a wake-up screaming kind of horror. So I would give it a 2 out of 10 on the scary scale. I don't think it's unfair. I mean, like, this is not too scary, so I think that's a kind of fair score for that.
Your language is offensive.
And don't worry, the real nightmares are coming soon at ranks 5 to 1, so wait for them.
Arrêtez, putain! Arrête! Arrête! Lâche ça! Lâche! Calmez-vous, putain! Rangez ça! Qu'est-ce que vous faites, là? Madame, qu'est-ce que vous faites? Arrête! Arrête!
At number 22, we have Mads 2024, a French short horror film that delivers a potent dose of tension in a compact package. Meet Romain, a teenager who kicks off his birthday with a visit to his dealer, eager to sample a new drug before a night of partying. High and carefree, he cruises through the night in his dad's Mustang. But things take a sharp turn when he drops his cigarette, pulls over, and a blooded, bandaged woman suddenly leaps into his car.
Hey, what is that?
Disoriented and under the influence, Romain's attempts to help spiral into a surreal nightmare, blurring the lines between reality and hallucination. As the night unfolds, his grip on sanity weakens, leading him into a chaotic and terrifying ordeal. So, what's my take? I think Mads is a wild ride that keeps you on edge from start to finish. Its single-take approach immerses you in a Romain's escalating panic, making every moment feel immediate and intense. While it hasn't garnered widespread ratings yet, early reviews praise its innovative storytelling and relentless pace. Many viewers hail it as one of the best horror films of 2024, and while I appreciate its craftsmanship, in terms of sheer scare factor, it doesn't quite hit the mark. So, is it worth watching? Absolutely, especially if you're a fan of psychological horror that doesn't rely on jump scares. Its unique execution and gripping plot make it stand out. However, if you prefer traditional horror narratives with clear resolutions, this might not be your cup of tea.
Your language is
And in terms of scare factor, as I told you before, Mads leans heavily into psychological terror, creating an atmosphere of unease rather than outright fear. I'd rate it a 2.5 out of 10, maybe 3 out of 10 on the scare scale. It's more about the lingering sense of dread than immediate scares and real fear.
better go and take a look.
What the hell is even that?
At number 20, we have Arcadian 2024, a supernatural thriller set in a post-apocalyptic wasteland where survival collides with eerie otherworldly forces. The film kicks off with Paul desperately scavenging through a ruined storehouse as sirens wail, explosions rumble in the distance, and chaos reigns. Clutching his two infant sons, he escapes into the night, vowing to keep them safe. Fast forward 15 years.
A few moments later.
A deadly pandemic has shattered civilization, and Paul now lives with his twin sons, Joseph and Thomas, in a crumbling farmhouse. By day, they struggle for basic survival, and by night, they hunker down against monstrous, photophobic creatures that prowl the darkness. As tensions simmer, especially when risk-taking Thomas, secretly smitten with Charlotte Rose, makes a fateful detour that lands him in a treacherous cave. Their fragile world teeters on the brink. And about my take, while many hail Arcadian for its ambitious atmospheric storytelling and unique blend of supernatural mystery and survival drama, it doesn't quite deliver on the pure scare factor.
Your language is offensive.
With a modest 3.5 out of 10 on the scare factor, its IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes scores reflect a film that's more thought-provoking than truly terrifying.
Your language is offensive.
In my opinion, it's stylish and intriguing. Is it worth watching with all that? If you love a deep atmospheric experience and enjoy quirky cameos, Arcadian is worth a watch for its narrative and visual flair. However, if jump scares and relentless terror are what you crave, you might want to skip this
Your
one.
language is offensive.
And about the scare factor, as I told you before, I'd give it a 3.5 out of 10. I hope it's not unfair. It builds mood and mystery.
They trapped us in. They're crawling up from underneath us. They'll break in any second. You need to trust me.
Brick, what the hell is that?
At number 18, we have Alien Romulus 2024, a sci-fi horror that plunges us into a dystopian future where survival is a battle against both shifting loyalties and bloodthirsty xenomorphs. Set in 2142, the film opens with a Weyland-Yutani probe recovering a mysterious cocoon from the wreck of the Nostromo.
What?
Fast forward to a rundown colony on the perpetually dark planet LV-410, where orphan colonist Rain Cardin finds herself trapped in a forced work contract.
Interesting.
Determined to escape, she rallies her ragtag crew, including her malfunctioning android brother Andy, her ex-boyfriend Tyler, and several other survivors, the commandeer a hauler and reach an abandoned Weyland-Yutani station called Renaissance. And their plan? Steal cryostasis equipment to survive a 9-year journey to a supposedly idyllic planet. But things go haywire when a series of missteps unleash thousands of deadly face-hugger parasites, shifting loyalties and igniting a brutal struggle for survival. So, my take? Many viewers are calling Alien Romulus a fascinating blend of sci-fi and horror with a twisty, intricate plot. While I appreciate its ambitious storytelling and cool futuristic vibe, it doesn't quite deliver the gut-wrenching terror you might expect. Is it worth watching? If you're into complex sci-fi horror with plenty of plot twists and high-stakes survival drama, Alien Romulus is definitely worth a watch. However, if you're after relentless, heart-pounding terror that keeps you up at night, this one might leave you a bit lukewarm. So, About the scare factor, a solid 5 out of 10, as I said before. It's engaging and thought-provoking, but not exactly nightmare fuel, and truly scary.
Are you sure you want to do this?
Julia, I told you to stay out of my room.
Alright, let's kick this off with Terrifier 3. This one, oh boy, Art the Clown is back and even more twisted than ever. Picking up after the bloody chaos of Terrifier 2, this movie takes us to a small town that becomes Art's personal playground of terror. But here's where it gets interesting. There's a survivor this time, someone who's been through Art's madness before and is out for revenge. It's like a deadly game of cat and mouse, and spoiler alert, Art doesn't play fair. In terms of people's opinion, I think this movie is brutal, it's graphic, it's relentless, and it does not hold back. IMDb has it sitting at 7.8 out of 10. I think it's too much for that. I didn't really like it. However, I hate slashes in general. And Rotten Tomatoes audience score is 82%. Fans love how intense and creative it gets. But critics are like, okay, maybe dial it down a notch, Art. So yeah, it's a bit divisive. Also, what makes this movie stand out, I think if you've seen the first 2 Terrifier movies, you know Art is a nightmare. But here they dig a little deeper into his backstory, and honestly, it makes him even creepier. If you like Terrifier 2 or classic gore fests like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, this will be your jam. It's basically those movies stand up to something like 11. So, is it worth watching? Here's the thing, not for me myself. If you're a die-hard slasher fan, you'll love it, I think. But if you're more of a casual horror watcher, you might want to skip this one. In terms of a scare factor, I would give it a 4 out of 10, but lots of people give it a 9 out of 10 even. It's personal, choices. Terrifier 3 doesn't really scare you in the traditional kind of sense. At number 17, we have A Quiet Place, Day 1, 2024, a sci-fi horror that reimagines survival in a world where silence isn't just golden, it's a lifesaver. The film follows Sam, a terminally ill cancer patient living at a hospice with her loyal cat, Frodo. One seemingly ordinary day, spending time at a marionette show in Manhattan, turns into chaos when mysterious meteor-like objects fall and alien creatures suddenly attack.
They're like, that's a buzzkill. And I'm like, what's that mean? And they're like, oh, it just means it's not good. So that was a buzzkill.
Sam is thrust into a frantic scramble for survival, forced to navigate a city under siege and eerie military warnings, all while clinging to the hope of escape without giving the monsters even a whisper of a chance. So, what's my take? Early reviews place its IMDb rating around 7.10 out of 10 and a Rotten Tomatoes score near 68%. I appreciate its blend of human emotion and nail-biting suspense, though in pure scare factor it's a bit more atmospheric than outright terrifying. And so is it worth watching? Absolutely, if you're into slow-burn, tension-filled narratives that mix heartfelt drama with alien menace. It's perfect for fans who love a thoughtful twist on post-apocalyptic horror.
No, thank you.
However, if you're chasing relentless jump scares, this one might feel a bit too measured. And about the scare factor, I'd give it a 6 out of 10. Alright, at number 16 we have MaXXXine 2024, a slasher that mashes up 80s LA glitz with a brutally wild edge. Set in 1985 Los Angeles during the chilling Night Stalker era, MaXXXine follows MaXXXine Minx, an adult film star who defies expectations by leading the lead in a new horror flick.
So, MaXXXine. Your agent tells us you're quite a popular name in adult film and entertainment.
But as she navigates the dark underbelly of Hollywood, mysterious figures and brutal encounters force her into a relentless cycle of survival and revenge. From Euro threats at live shows to wild, shock-filled confrontations in the alleys of the city, every moment pulses with raw, unapologetic grit.
You can get the baby out of here.
My take is that critics and fans are buzzing about its audacious style, though its IMDb score sits around 6 out of 10 and Rotten Tomatoes hovers in the decent range. It's clear that while MaXXXine is entertaining and edgy, its scare factor is more about camp and shock than a spine-chilling terror, and definitely blood.
I make a toast. What? What do you got there?
What is that? Blood Brothers.
So, is it worth watching? If you kind of love cult slashers with an 80s attitude, over-the-top gore, and a healthy dose of wild, revenge-fueled action, then this one's definitely for you. But if you're chasing non-stop, heart-pounding fear, it might feel more like a bloody spectacle than a true scare fest.
Your language is offensive.
So, what would be the scare factor for me would be 6 out of 10, intense and jaw-dropping in places.
I'm very sorry, okay?
Joey, what's happening?
Just sorting something out.
I might be wrong, Frank.
Joey, I'm scared.
Fucking put it down.
Please point that somewhere else.
You're not touching that girl.
Okay?
Put it the fuck down.
Sammy, little help would be nice.
Don't pull Sammy in.
We need
to.
Peter,
I'll talk to her.
Guys.
try me. Guys!
Sammy, shut the fuck up! What the fuck? How the fuck did she get out of those cuffs?
Huh?
Alright, at number 15 we have Abigail 2024, a vampire horror that meshes up twisted crime with supernatural revenge in a way that's as wild as it is brutal. The film follows young ballet dancer Abigail, who gets abducted by a ragtag crew of criminals on a ransom scheme. But hold up, this isn't your typical kidnapping.
Highly recommended. You know the rules. No real names, no backstories.
As the criminals scramble to hold her for a hefty payout, things spiral into a chaotic mess of dark family secrets, brutal betrayals, and a shocking supernatural twist. One minute, you're watching low-life criminals doing their dirty work, and the next, Abigail reveals a deadly vampiric side that turns the whole plan on its head.
Holy shit!
Alright, and my take, critics and fans are buzzing about Abigail for its edgy, cult vibe and wild narrative. Many even call it one of the best horror films of 2024, which is not, in my opinion. However, in terms of pure scare factor, while it's intense and over the top, it leans more toward shocking spectacle than sustained terror. Even, I could say, sometimes it's funny and comedy, rather than horror.
No way. Yeah.
So, is it worth a watch? If you're into offbeat, adult-themed horror with unpredictable twists and a hefty dose of blood and betrayal, this one's for you. But if you're after straightforward, heart-pounding jump scares, and really horror, scary movies, it might feel a bit too chaotic for you.
Your language is offensive.
And so about the scare factor, I would give it a 6.5 out of 10, maybe. Still not as scary as it should be, so it doesn't categorize in the best horror movies of 2024.
Ready?
At number 14, we have Speak No Evil 2024, a psychological thriller that turns a seemingly idyllic farmhouse getaway into a slow burn descent into domestic dread. So, the Daltons, an American family already at odds with each other, are invited by a quirky British couple to their remote farmhouse in Devon. What starts as a hopeful escape soon unravels into a series of bizarre and unsettling events. Strange behavior, eerie secrets, and a creeping sense that something is very, very off lurk behind every polite smile.
Please, I need to get out of here now. Please, what are you doing?
So, what would be my take? I think while many are calling Speak No Evil, is one of the 2024's best horror films for its twisty narrative and atmosphere. Actually, it has an original, if I'm right, Sweden version as well, that you could watch that as well, but I think the 2024 version is way better than that one. I must say, its scares lean more toward unsettling psychological tension than outright terror. With IMDb ratings around 7 out of 10 and a Rotten Tomatoes score near 70%, it's well crafted, but won't have you screaming every minute, because it's a kind of, psychological horror, rather than that kind of horror that you would be scared or screaming like that. So, in general, is it worth watching? If you love a slow, simmering horror that gradually reveals dark secrets and messes with your mind, this one's a must-see for you. But if you crave relentless jump scares and real fear and heart-stopping frights, it might leave you a bit wanting still.
Your language is offensive.
So what would be the scare factor? I'd give it a solid 7 out of 10 because it's really good in my opinion.
Breath of fresh air. Oh, well, that is very sweet of you to say.
At number 13, we have Nosferatu. The creeping doom, Nosferatu is a must-see. I would rate it a 7 out of 10.
Not cool. Not cool!
I was wondering when you were finally gonna show.
At number 12, we have In a Violent Nature 2024, a brutal slasher that's a blood-soaked playground for gore fans, even if it wasn't really my cup of tea. So, it all kicks off when a group of friends stumbles upon a mysterious locket hanging from an old fire tower. The moment Troy pockets the locket, things spiral into chaos. Out of nowhere, Johnny, once presumed dead, erupts from the woods in a relentless, gory rampage, his thirst for vengeance ignited by the cursed locket. As Johnny cuts a bloody swath through the forest, his savage acts turn what was meant to be a fun night outdoors into a nightmarish bloodbath. This movie really reminds me of the movie in 1981 called The Burning. So, what is my take? I think critics and hardcore gore fans are raving about its unfiltered violence. IMDb clocks it at around 6.2 out of 10, I think, and Rotten Tomatoes sits near 65%, which is not bad. While that raw, splattery action is a dream for gore enthusiasts, I have to admit, as someone who isn't really into slashes, it didn't quite give me the terror factor I was hoping for. If you're all about extreme, visceral horror with relentless carnage and blood everywhere, In a Violent Nature is definitely worth your time. But if you prefer horror that builds tension more subtly, you might find this one a bit over the top. So, what would be the scare factor? I would give it a 7 out of 10 again, a savage, unfiltered spectacle that'll thrill gore lovers with a lot of blood, even if it doesn't send shivers down my spine.
Keep killing.
At number 11, we have Siccin 7 2024, a folk demonic horror that plunges you into a world where ancient curses and dark family secrets collide. So what is the plot? Forced to quit his job as a doctor after a bloody deal with a child panhandling mafia, Kamal flees with his family to his uncle's eerie mansion. There, the dark secret he's been hiding to save his little daughter, Roya, from her illness starts to merge with a malevolent force lurking within the old state. As unsettling rituals and inexplicable omens creep in, the line between natural and supernatural blurs into a nightmarish reality. So, what's my take? Critics are loving its atmospheric dread. IMDb rates it around 6.8 out of 10, and Rotten Tomatoes is giving it roughly 70%. It's a solid slow burn entry that fans of ritualistic folk horror will appreciate.
No, thank you.
Personally though, while its eerie mood and dark folklore are compelling, it didn't hit the pure scare factor for me, but it's a really good movie in my opinion. So, is it worth watching? If you're into horror that builds its terror with ancient curses, dark rituals, and a heavy, foreboding atmosphere, Siccin 7 is a must-see. I cannot compare it to any movies, but in terms of theme, it's something like Conjuring. I mean, it's supernatural horror. It has lots of jump scares, and at the same time, it gives you slow terrors and fears. About the scare factor, I'd rate it a 7 out of 10, chilling and immersive for those who love atmospheric horror, even if it isn't a non-stop scare fest.
It's all for you. No, don't!
At number 10, we have the First Omen 2024, a chilling prequel that takes us back to the origins of one of horror's most terrifying legends. And trust me, now that we are in the top 10, the nightmare fuel is only getting stronger. And what is the plot? In 1971, Rome, young American novice Margaret arrives at the Visadelli orphanage, unaware that she's stepping into a web of sinister conspiracies.
Oh shit, buddy, I gotta dig a little deeper.
As she uncovers horrifying secrets about the church's desperate attempts to regain power, she realizes that an ancient evil is being nurtured, and she's at the heart of it. With disturbing visions, gruesome deaths, and a blood-curdling revelation about her own fate, the First Omen is a slow descent into pure unrelenting dread. So what's my take? This is where the real terror begins. IMDb rated 7.1 out of 10, and Rotten Tomatoes sits at 76%. But forget the numbers for a second. The First Omen doesn't just scare you, it unsettles you on a deeper level. The atmosphere is suffocating, the religious horror elements hit hard, and the sheer hopelessness of this story makes it linger in your mind long after the credits roll. So is it worth watching? If you love religious horror that goes all in on cult conspiracies, possession, and a creeping sense of doom, The First Omen is a must-watch. But if you're not into slow burn horror that builds its terror layer by layer, this one might feel too methodical. So, the scare factor for this one I think would be an 8 out of 10.
It's not real. 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 Who said that?
I was careless last night. I promised to carry myself with grace because I want nothing more than to belong here. I'm afraid I've already messed things up. Your Eminence? Hello?
At number 9, we have Immaculate 2024, a nightmarish religious horror that takes the concept of Immaculate conception to a grotesque and terrifying new level. If you thought the First Omen was disturbing, buckle up because things are getting even darker. So, Sister Cecilia, a young nun, joins a convent in Italy, only to find herself at the center of a horrifying experiment. After mysteriously becoming pregnant despite being a virgin, she is worshipped by the other nuns until she realizes the sinister truth. The convent isn't a place of holy devotion, but a twisted lab where a priest-turned-geneticist is trying to create the next messiah using DNA from a supposed holy relic. As her body deteriorates, her pleas for help are ignored, and one by one, those who oppose the convent's dark agenda are silenced. With no way out, Cecilia must fight for her survival before she gives birth to something truly unholy. So, what's my take? IMDb has it at 6.8 out of 10, while Rotten Tomatoes gives it 73%, but this is pure psychological torment. Unlike the slow burn dread of the First Omen, Immaculate throws you into a world of relentless claustrophobic horror. The convent's eerie silence, the body horror, and the utter helplessness Cecilia feels make this a terrifying watch. So, is it worth a watch? If you love religious horror with body horror elements, Immaculate delivers on every level. What would be the scare factor? I would give it an 8.5 out of 10.
Ta grosse bouche.
Jordi, elle répond ou pas? Jordi, la répond pas.
Bouge pas, bouge pas.
Alright, number 8, we have Infested 2024, a nerve-wracking, skin-crawling horror that will make you check every corner of your room before sleeping. So, what's the plot? Caleb, a young man living in a deteriorating Parisian apartment complex, unknowingly brings home a highly venomous spider from the black market. What starts as a single creepy crawler soon turns into a nightmare as the spider rapidly reproduces, turning his home into a webbed death trap. With hundreds, maybe thousands, of aggressive flesh-eating spiders swarming every inch of the building, Caleb, his sister, and the remaining residents must fight for survival before becoming cocooned in a living tomb.
They're like, that's a buzzkill. And I'm like, what's that mean? And they're like, oh, it just means it's not good. So that was a buzzkill.
As the infestation spreads, paranoia and desperation set in, leading to gruesome deaths, terrifying betrayals, and one hell of a claustrophobic nightmare. So my take, now that you're in the top 10, the scare factor is, cranked way up. And Infested is pure arachnophobic terror. Imagine The Mist meets arachnophobia, but in a tight, decaying apartment complex where the walls literally come alive with thousands of hungry spiders.
No, thank you.
Critics are loving its tense atmosphere and practical effects, giving it an IMDb rating of 7.2 out of 10, while Rotten Tomatoes sits around 75%. If you hate spiders, this movie is a hell on earth. The film doesn't rely on cheap jump scares. Instead, it builds pure dread, making your skin crawl the entire time. But if you have arachnophobia or something, just skip it. You'll never sleep again. Believe me it. So, but the scare factor, a solid 8 out of 10. Number 7, we have Exhuma 2024, a supernatural horror thriller that blends Korean shamanism, ancient curses, and vengeful spirits in a terrifying folklore-driven mystery. So what's the plot? Renowned Korean shaman Hwa-rim and her protege Bang-gil are hired by a wealthy Korean-American family to investigate the mysterious illness affecting their newborn son. Their search uncovers a terrifying truth: the child is cursed by an ancestral spirit known as the Grave's Call. The family's patriarch, Park Ji-young, believes relocating his grandfather's grave will break the curse. Hwa-rim assembles a team including Feng Shui master Kim Sang-deok and mortician Yoon-gun to unearth the grave, despite ominous warnings.
What?
However, things spiral into chaos when an ancient evil is accidentally unleashed, a vengeful entity tied to Japan's brutal colonial past. This relentless and this restless spirit begins hunting down its bloodline, claiming Ji-young and his parents. Just when the horror seems over, the team discovers something even more sinister buried nearby: an ancient samurai Oni acting as a guardian for powerful Japanese spiritual weapon meant to weaken Korea's life force. So, what's my take? I think Exhuma is visually stunning and deeply unsettling. Much like The Wailing, but with more action. IMDb gives it 7.8 out of 10, and critics praise its intricate storytelling and intense horror sequences. So, is it worth watching? I think if you love folklore-based horror with a rich cultural and historical backdrop and real kind of scary movie, this is a must-watch. So, what would be the scare factor? I would give it a solid 8.5 out of 10 again, with its relentless spiritual horror, disturbing exorcism scenes, and intense battles against supernatural entities. Exhuma keeps you on edge the entire time.
뭐가 나왔다고 거기서. 겁나 험한 게.
Yes, honey.
No,
Don't you worry one bit. You're gonna feel real nice soon.
I meant no police. Please, man, do me this favor, no fucking cops.
Number 6, we have A Strange Darling 2024, a psychological horror thriller that's more disturbing than outright terrifying, playing mind games that will leave you uneasy long after the credits roll. So, what's the plot? Set in rural Oregon, A Strange Darling follows a twisted game of predator and prey between a woman known only as the Lady and a mysterious man called the Demon. What begins as a seemingly dangerous but consensual encounter in a motel quickly spirals into a deadly battle of wits, deception, and survival. As the two face off, it becomes clear that neither is who they appear to be, leading to a brutal, pulse-pounding showdown that flips the hunter and hunter dynamic on its head. So, what's my take? I think this isn't your typical slasher or supernatural horror. Strange Darling is a psychological horror at its finest, filled with intense mind games, brutal twists, and a non-linear storytelling style that keeps you guessing. The film thrives on tension rather than cheap scares, making every moment feel unnervingly real. So is it worth a watch? Absolutely, if you love psychological horror that messes with your head. The film plays with perspective and keeps you on edge, making you question who the real villain is. But if you're looking for something filled with just, I'm not sure, jump scares and supernatural frights, this might not be your cup of tea, and don't watch it. And how about the scare factor? I would give it an 8 out of 10. Not terrifying in the traditional sense at all, but deeply unsettling.
I want something intimate, something romantic.
At number 5, we have I Saw the TV Glow 2024, a surreal reality-bending horror that burrows into your mind and lingers like a half-remembered nightmare. In 1996, lonely teenagers Owen and Maddie form an intense bond over their shared obsession with the pink opaque, a late-night TV show about two girls, Isabel and Tara, who use their psychic powers to battle the mysterious villain, Master Melancholy. But to Maddie, the pink opaque isn't just a show. It's something much deeper, something more real than real life. Years pass and Maddie vanishes without a trace. When she suddenly reappears, she insists that the world they live in isn't real, that they are actually characters trapped inside the pink opaque itself, imprisoned in a warped nightmare known as the Midnight Realm. As Owen revisits the show, his grip on reality unravels, leading him down a spiral of existential dread, isolation, and eerie unreality, where the boundaries between fiction and life collapse. So, what's my take? First of all, it's a very interesting movie. This movie isn't about jump scares or gore. It's a kind of slow-burning, deeply unsettling descent into existential horror. I Saw the TV Glow plays with nostalgia, trauma, and identity in a way that's more disturbing than traditionally scary. It's, taps into the feeling of being trapped in a life that doesn't feel like your own. And that psychological horror cuts way deeper than any monster ever could. So, but this is what I believe of this movie. So is it worth a watch? For myself, it was. I mean, if you like your horror, dreamlike, thought-provoking, and deeply unsettling, then absolutely yes. And so, about the scare factor, I would give it an 8 out of 10.
What if I really was someone else? Very far away on the other side of a television screen.
I mean, gosh, and I knew I was a handful as it was.
At number 4, we have Longlegs 2024, a chilling, slow-burn horror that feels like a true crime nightmare laced with the supernatural. So what is the plot? In 1974 Oregon, a young girl wanders into the woods with a Polaroid camera, following an eerie voice, only to come face to face with something truly unnatural. Fast forward 20 years, FBI agent Lee Harker is assigned to a disturbing cold case, a series of murder-suicides where fathers slaughter their entire families before taking their own lives. The only clue? A coded letter left at every scene, signed by a mysterious figure known only as Longlegs.
What the hell is even that?
But as Lee digs deeper, she realizes she's not just hunting a killer. She might be connected to him in ways she never imagined. The case spirals into something far more occult, personal, and horrifying, leading her toward a destiny she can't escape. So what is my take? If you love true crime mixed with supernatural horror, this is your movie. Longlegs has been compared to The Silence of the Lambs with a touch of The Exorcist. Nicolas Cage's performance as Longlegs is deeply unsettling, making him one of the most terrifying horror villains in recent memory. The film doesn't rely on cheap jump scares. Instead, it builds paralyzing dread through its eerie atmosphere, cryptic clues, and an kind of unshakable feeling that something evil is always watching. Is it worth watching? Yes, of course, if you can handle slow-burning horror that gets under your skin. So what would be the scare factor? It would go for a straight 9 out of 10. This movie doesn't just scare you in the moment, it sticks with you. It's the kind of horror that makes you second-guess shadows in your room and leaves you checking your mail for coded letters.
I'll be waiting.
We've set up a little tent here downstairs instead of going back to the city, and it's coming at you from the wilds of our unfurnished city. We've set up a little tent here downstairs instead of going back to the city, and and romantic. What do you think, Ted?
Secrets within. But the truth is even darker. As supernatural forces awaken and the past refuses to stay buried, the host are the most unsettling horror films of the year. The tension builds gradually, creating a sense of dread that lingers long after the credits roll. The film's mix of psychological horror, revenge thriller, and supernatural elements makes it a unique, slow-burning nightmare. And the mannequin, I mean pure nightmare, it's a lot of films like The Others 2001 or The Autopsy of Jane Doe 2016, this will be right up your alley. And about the scare factor, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10, haunting visuals, an eerie atmosphere, and a mannequin you'll never forget.
If the entity is present tonight, it may manifest itself in any number of ways. Lily, to me. Close your eyes, Lily. If Mr. Quiet.
You know who I am, Doctor.
At number 2, we have Late Night with the Devil 2024, a found-footage horror that turns a 1970s talk show into a live, unaired nightmare. So what's the plot? Halloween night, 1977. A struggling late-night host, Jack Delroy, is desperate for ratings, willing to do anything to boost his show, Night Owls, with Jack Delroy. His latest gimmick, an occult-themed special featuring a psychic, a skeptic, a parapsychologist, and her latest subject, 13-year-old Lily Dubbo, the lone survivor of a satanic cult's mass suicide. At first, it's all harmless TV theatrics, until Lily starts channeling something far more real and sinister. The broadcast ends, and what happened that night remains one of television's greatest mysteries. So what's my take? This film is brilliantly executed, a mix of The Exorcist and Ghostwatch 1992 and The Blair Witch Project, but with the sleek aesthetic of a vintage late-night show gone horribly wrong. This slow build-up, period-accurate TV production and shockingly realistic performances make it feel like a real cursed broadcast you weren't supposed to see. The movie doesn't rely on cheap jump scares, and instead it traps you in an atmosphere of pure dread that keeps escalating until all hell literally breaks loose. So, is it worth a watch? Yeah, definitely, especially if you're a fan of found footage horror, the slow burning tension, and movies that mess with your perception of reality. And about the scare factor, I would give it a 9 out of 10. It starts as eerie and unsettling, but a little bit slow to be honest, and by the end you'll be questioning whether you even saw what you think you saw.
Get out there, Mr. Midnight. And you knock him dead.
Oh, no! No!
What?
Alright, and first on our list is Smile 2, psychological horror. Imagine this, just when you thought the cursed smiling entity from Smile 1 was done terrorizing people, it's back, and somehow it's even creepier. This time the story picks up with a new protagonist who stumbles across the curse in the most horrifying way. The rules? Same as before. Once you're marked, you're stuck in this nightmare loop of creepy smiles, hallucinations, and unraveling secrets about the curse's origins. And trust me, the movie doesn't waste time getting into the weird, messed up mind games.
You witnessed a death. Now it's latched onto you.
911, what's your emergency?
My personal opinion on this, I think the sequel doesn't hold back. It doubles down on the terror. and keeps you guessing the entire time. You think you figured it out, and then bam, plot twist. It's like it's playing a psychological game of cat and mouse with you. Those creepy smiles, yep, still nightmare material. IMDb giving it 7.2 out of 10, and Rotten Tomatoes critics are at 83%, with audiences at 76%. So, is it worth watching? 100%. This is one of those rare movies that truly messed with my head. And my wife's too. We barely slept after watching it. And let me tell you, that wasn't a fun night. It's not just the scares during the movie. It's the way it sticks with you after the credits roll, keeping you staring at a wall, leaving you with this uneasy feeling in the pit of your stomach. If that's not effective horror, I don't know what it is. And also, with the scare factor, I would give it a straight 9 out of 10. It's not just jump scares, it's the creeping dread, the psychological mind games, and that lingering bad vibe that hits you right when you think you're safe. So, which one of these movies messed you up the most? Drop your answer in the comments, and if I missed a movie that deserves a spot on this list, let me know. Hey, if you made it this far, I know you love horror, so why not stick around? Hit that like button, subscribe for more terrifying recommendations, and turn on notifications so you never miss a deep dive into the dark. And if you think you can handle even more nightmares, check out my last videos right here. Trust me, they're even more disturbing. Sleep tight.